Hello, everyone, and welcome. Thank you, each and every one of you, for being here. Very excited about the conversation, and got to share something with you. It is fascinating who all is on the call today. Some of you I know are coaches. You've gone through the program. Some of you are brand new to coaching and just checking it out and learning about it. Some of you work with coaches internally, and so you're interested in this program from that perspective. So we have a lot of different interests in terms of what you want out of the program. Of course, many of you did submit questions ahead of time, and we've got those questions available, and we'll work to be answering all of them as much as possible. In addition to what you submitted ahead of time, I do want to let you know we'll be monitoring the question panel as we go through, so that whatever else you want to ask, you're welcome to type it in. We'll watch that. The intention of this is really for those of you that are working with coaches either internally or externally. Those of you that are the coaches, what's great about this is the awareness of what some of the misperceptions are in terms of coaching, and of course it serves as a modeling as far as having the conversation with somebody about what coaching really is about. For those of you that are learning that side of it, you'll have a lot of fun. Some of the misperceptions will make sense to you. You've thought them yourself. Some of them will be, oh, it hadn't occurred to me. So it'll be really good to get that clarity. We have got a quick 30 minutes, and the agenda for the conversation starts with the myths, the misunderstandings about coaching. Then we're going to move into the reality and define it in response to each of those myths. We'll talk about the outcomes of coaching, the application, what are the best practices for those coaching programs, and then, of course, share some resources with you. And when we get to the stage on resources, I do have something for you there, so hang in with us. All right, starting out with the myths of coaching. Coaching is, and here's where we start, people think it's easy. Well, guys, it's easy to coach because all you do is listen and ask questions. All right, stop and reflect for just a moment. When you get asked a question, it's so easy to figure out the answer, and that's a normal tendency. It is much more challenging to have the other person figure it out. So coaching is easy as a myth. Mental health. There are a lot of people that think having a coach is like having a counselor or a therapist, and it is completely different. They think coaching is advising, like having a mentor or a consultant. If someone is advising, they're not coaching. And then you also have the myth that it's limited in application. And of course, those of you that do coaching or have gone through coach training because of the skill set, we all know the application is absolutely across the board broad in terms of personal and career. So digging in specifically, the myth that it's easy. The reality is it's easier to give the answers than it is to coach. Coaches actually listen deeply, ask questions, and that takes time, skill, and patience. Another myth that's very common is that coaching is mental health. Well, mental health professionals, first off, have very specific training and very specific licensure. They assess the individual clients, and they diagnose. As a matter of fact, because mental health professionals are typically collecting from insurance companies, they're actually required to have a diagnosis within the first 30 minutes. Their focus is to help people become whole. The difference is that coaches are professionals who are working with people that are whole so that they strategize and set those goals and objectives. Very, very different. We actually have that conversation when we do coach training in terms of what exactly a mental health professional does that a coach doesn't do. And it's important to distinguish these differences. All right, the next myth, advising. Mentoring or consulting are the most common misperceptions. There are a lot of organizations that look at it this way. They interchange the use of the words mentor or coach. They even have programs that are called mentoring and coaching programs. And of course it's confusing because coaches have coach mentors as well. Well, the reality is that a mentor or a consultant is engaged to provide expertise and advice. Think about it. When you have a mentor, you want their experience, you want their wisdom, and they give that to you. They share their expertise with you, and whether they're a mentor or consultant, they're there to give you advice. How is that different? Well, coaches elicit the answer from within the client. Coaches come at it from the premise that that individual is their own best expert, and they do have the answer within. And it's very, very different. All right, the next myth. Coaching is training or facilitating. Well, again, coaching is very, very different than training or facilitating. If someone is a trainer, and yeah, I do a lot of training, and as a matter of fact, do a lot of facilitation. And when you're a trainer, you're providing the information. That's our job. When you're a facilitator, you have a specific purpose or desired outcome out of the conversation. So you're focused on specific information. In both cases, you have planned objectives for what's happening. Very, very different, because coaches help the client explore the possibilities. And it's the client who decides what information they want to talk about and focus on and develop and further. So it really is different. They're the ones that come up with it. Now, the next myth, that it's limited in application. Well, that's an easy one to think. It's funny because sometimes people who do business or executive coaching think, okay, that's it, that's all there is. People who are involved on the life coaching side hadn't really thought about the business coaching or the executive coaching. And the reality is coaching is useful in all industries. It's useful at work, it's useful at home, and it's useful at play. Think about it. Coaching is about people skills, it's about communication skills. It's really listening deeply for understanding, working with different people, and saying it in a way that's clear, direct, and respectful for all. That helps in everything that we do. So, moving into more detail on the reality, coaching is listening deeply, hearing what they're saying and what they're not saying. It's asking powerful questions. Coaching is working with the whole person, and it's on their future, what it is they want. So as a coach, you're partnering with them to empower them. In terms of the whole person, sometimes people say, well, if we do business or executive coaching, it's only about the job. When in fact Harvard Business Review in their study found that 76% of the time the personal issues get addressed in those business executive coaching engagements. So it really is about the whole person. And ultimately, it's useful in all sectors. We see people coaching in education. We see people coaching in the medical world. We see people use coaching in financial planning or in law offices. We see coaches in all kinds of industries and professions, whether it is pharmaceutical, engineering, you name it, it's got application. Now, of course, in addition to that, for those of you that are parents or have other family members, it's great. It's so helpful. I'm at that stage where I wish I'd known when I was much younger as a parent what I've learned now. I probably would have made fewer mistakes along the way because I know I made a lot of them, and the skills are so incredibly helpful. So more on reality. Giving answers is fun, and it's easy. Think about it. Somebody asks you a question, we love to give answers. whether or not we really know. We love to brainstorm ideas and come up with suggestions. Hey, here's something you can do. Hey, here's how you can do it. And that part's a lot of fun. Now, reflect on this and go deep with it, because ultimately, eliciting the answers from the individual, wow, that takes more time, skill, and patience. Because when you ask someone a question, chances are you're thinking about different possible answers. Most of us do. And the reality is, for them to think about the answers means giving them the space to do that and asking more questions and getting them to brainstorm and expand their thinking, because then they have the opportunity for doing that. So eliciting the answers from others does take skill and patience and time. And in coaching, it's one of the key reasons that we get the results we get, because that person is in charge of figuring out their own answers. Okay, another one for you. Coaching is partnering with somebody, and partnering with them in a way that supports them to explore, to discover their own answers, and then going further, create their own plan and balance all areas of their life. It's truly about that individual and about what's going to work for them and what makes sense for them. Now, we talked also about coaching versus mental health. So think about it this way. As a coach, we realize that each individual is their own best expert. We talked about coaching as the myth of thinking it's like mentoring or consulting. And again, each individual is their own best expert. They are the only ones who know all of their influencing factors, the personalities of the people they're dealing with, what their situations are, the logistics, and everything else. So they truly are their own best expert. And it's the coach's job to empower that. And what's exciting about that as a coach is because knowing that, hey, they do have the answer, and it's really about asking the questions and challenging them and pushing them. And then for the individual working with the coach, it means there's the opportunity. You have the time and the space to really think it through. And that's powerful. It's a fabulous, fabulous opportunity. The reality of it is huge. And the reality is coaching gets used at home, it gets used at play, and it gets used at work in all different industries. It's absolutely across the board, and it's exciting. So for those of you that are coaching, yes, all of the different professions, all of the different types of companies out there, organizations, for-profit, non-profit, government, you name it, they're all using coaching. It's the second fastest growing profession in the world, according to Ray Williams, and there's a lot of it happening. So it's a fabulous opportunity. For those of you inside an organization wanting to create positive and meaningful change, coaching is the organizational development tool of choice according to Denison University. So it's a powerful asset in terms of creating that change. And then when you are coached, it really is that opportunity to figure it out for yourself, create your plan, and have an accountability partner, someone who's on your side in terms of staying on track with your goals and objectives, and also recognizing yourself along the way for the progress and the success. So it's very, very exciting in that regard. Now let's dig into some of the return on investment. We've got the myths, we've got the reality. How come it's so powerful? And how powerful is it? So starting with how powerful. When you have the appropriate training for a coach, and that is significant because, yes, there are people who call themselves coaches who haven't gone through the appropriate training. When you have the appropriate training and application, it does support achieving and it supports results. Now here's the average. 500 to 700% return on investment. If you look at the article by Fortune magazine, they cite that. They looked at a number of different studies, and they put you right in the middle of that number at 600%. One of the most commonly cited studies was from Manchester Inc., and they cite a 570% return on investment. Another one that's commonly cited is Matrix Global. Less commonly cited, there was a great study done by Triad Performance Technologies, and they looked at coaching in the telecommunications profession with sales individuals, and they very specifically are able to track those sales numbers. And in that study, they cited 1,000% return on investment. Now, this is incredible, because when you think of a return on investment being that high, you get the reason companies are using coaching programs. It's making a difference. Now, here's the interesting thing. When you actually read the studies, and this comes up frequently in conversation, you're like, okay, well, what are you measuring? And how are you measuring it? Because ultimately what happens with coaching is you're going to get changes that you can very easily quantify, and you're going to get change that is qualitative. And so these studies look at both aspects. They look at the quantifiable changes, and examples for that include those sales numbers I mentioned. Companies also have internal metrics they look at. For example, productivity, employee engagement, turnover. Think about it. When you look at turnover, you can figure out how much it costs the organization to replace an individual inside the company. And so when you're evaluating and saying, okay, if we invest this much money in a coaching program, and of course you got to track, okay, here's the number before, the only thing we're changing is the coaching, here's the number after, how much of a difference is it making? So there are some very specific things you can measure. Now, the other part that's more challenging is the qualitative side of these measures. So think about it this way. How do you measure, gosh, when the boss is just nicer, they motivate, they're more supportive, they communicate more effectively? How do you measure that? So there's some measure available in terms of the employee engagement and the turnover. That's going to show up there. At the same time, there's a lot of qualitative measure. So when you read the actual studies, and you can find these, simply go online and do an internet search for the return on investment for coaching, and you'll be able to see these studies. You're going to find that in many cases what they do is look at those qualitative benefits, and they have the participants assign a dollar value to them so that they can come up with a number in terms of the return on investment. So in a coaching engagement one-on-one with a coach and a client, what typically happens is the coach is working with that client to figure out what that client's return on investment is going to be, how they're going to measure it, what do they want to accomplish, and how are they going to assign the value in terms of the coaching for achieving what it is they want. Now, all great insight in terms of how it's measured, the outcome of it. Another thought for you, it really does make a difference how it's done. And if you want effective coaching, you want to start with training. And here's what we're finding increasingly. Companies and organizations, and yes, individuals too, that are hiring coaches are asking about that training. They're asking about certification, and they're asking people if they're a member of the International Coach Federation. The International Coach Federation is the gold standard in the coaching profession. That's who has membership standards. They have the code of ethics and an accountability process for that. And they've established the core competencies for a coach. And ultimately, when your coach is professional and they care about what they're doing, that training, the ethics, and the competency are going to enhance their effectiveness. And that's what's going to make a difference in that coaching engagement. So you want to ask them about it if you're somebody who's hiring coaches. And as coaches, be prepared. Be ready with your own bio or elevator speech, if you will, answering that question when you get asked, because people want to know. coaching as a process and a tool does change the culture in the organization, because coaching is about the future. It's about the goal, what people want, and how they go about getting it. So what does that mean in terms of the organization? Well, it starts with one individual and taking that coaching approach and focusing on the solutions and the proactive planning for moving forward. And that influence spreads. And companies are recognizing this and creating what they call a coaching culture, where it engages everybody in that kind of focus and intention, being proactive, looking at the future, what they want and how they're moving toward that, communicating in a way that's positive and respectful for everyone. And it changes the culture of the organization. And when you look at what happens with the culture of the organization, you can track it back down to the bottom line. Okay. Let's keep going. There's so much good stuff here. All right. Now, the return on investment we mentioned, and we talked about the impact going beyond. So that speaks to that company culture and what's going on there. Now, I'm going to give you another one for that. It increases employee engagement and productivity. So here's your very specific example from Personnel Management Association, and they looked at productivity. When you do a training program, you're going to get a 22% increase in productivity. Okay? Now, that's great. They're providing the information that gives people what they have to know to go out and improve what they're doing. Awesome. When you add coaching with that training program, you get an 88% improvement. 4 times the difference as far as improvement in productivity. Now, how is it that coaching is going to make such a difference that the productivity impact is 4 times based on that coaching? And it goes back to what coaching is all about. Training provides information, and then the coach says to the individual, okay, what did you learn? How are you going to use it? What's your plan for implementing it? How are you doing with that implementation? What do you want to adjust? What do you want to celebrate and keep doing? And that's where you're going to get that change and that impact. Now, what are the best practices when you're involved in coaching, whether as a coach, a client, or the sponsor? Yes, the training. And of course, when you have training, you're going to want training for your internal coaches and your external coaches. The internal coaches' best practices, who are they working with? How many of them are there? How many external coaches are there? And program management. How do you handle that? So diving into each of these. The best practices is to have external training for internal coaches. You're going to see blogs on this. You're going to see the American Management Association did an article on this, and they came up with that as a best practice. And what is interesting, according to that article, is that very often companies use internal training for internal coaches. Oh, well, we can do this. We know what we're talking about here. And they haven't had the external training themselves, and so there's a gap. The best result comes from external training. Now, with the external coaches, same thing. Look at what's going on with the International Coach Federation. Having external coaches that have gone through coaching certification and ideally are members of the International Coach Federation. These are best practices. Okay. For your internal coaches, according to that same study by the American Management Association, having internal coaches available to your entry-level people on up through mid-level. And then what you want to do is bring in external coaches for your highest levels of management. And here's the reason for that. Well, think about it. Internally, entry-level to mid-level management, it's simply cost-effective to have the internal coaches, and it works because the internal coaches know the culture and the environment and are able to very effectively work with the people. The reason external coaches are more effective for your upper levels of management is, well, think about it. If you have someone who is the coach, and they are actually below the individual they're coaching in the chain of command, makes it pretty tough for that individual to think out loud and brainstorm different ideas and strategies. So that external coach creates that opportunity. So the study, by the way, from American Management Association, I'm seeing your question in the question panel. You can go online and do a search for it, American Management Association on coaching. I actually had a chance to grab their PDF of it. It's a great study. I definitely recommend reading it. Okay, let's keep going. Thanks for that question. All right, coaching programs. Where do you run them? Who manages and oversees them? Because it's essential in terms of being effective that you do have that oversight in place. So the American Management Association study looked at the organizational development or organizational leadership team. Now, sometimes that is its own department. Sometimes that's within the training or talent development areas. Sometimes it's under HR. It does vary. When it is the organizational development or leadership people, that's most effective. So you do want individual in that space doing it. And of course, another part of the best practice is creating buy-in across the board. We've done other webinars on this. We do have blogs on this, and if you want, I'm happy to share a white paper with you as well. You want to create buy-in, and buy-in starts at the top, and it starts with having the information on the return on investment. And then you want to spread that out to all levels in the organization. That's done by effectively communicating with people, sharing the information across the board, engaging everyone. You want to be prepared. This is almost too obvious, right? Being prepared means you have a plan for what you're doing and how you're doing it. You have a process for handling it, and then of course getting the people in place. Who are the coaches, who are the people being coached, and making sure that's happening. All of that you want in place. Okay, we've got a couple of minutes left to share some resources with you. I want to very quickly highlight the International Coach Federation. I think that'll respond. I've got a question in here on that. We'll respond to that. And also want to highlight the Center for Coaching Certification and the Center for Coaching Solutions. So let's start with the International Coach Federation. They are a nonprofit professional membership organization, and as an organization, the members are individual coaches. They do approve training programs. So they look at what the programs are, what the content is, etc. And the good news for you, if you're thinking about training, is they've got hundreds of programs that are available to you. That's the good news, and they look at what the content is of those programs. Do check out the Coach Federation, and when you are looking to engage a coach, ask them about their membership status in terms of the ICF, because when they're a member of the ICF, you know they've had at least 60 hours of training, and they're serious about that role as a professional coach. Now, another resource for you in terms of the training itself is the Center for Coaching Certification. Yes, it is one of the programs that's approved by the ICF, and in addition to that, it's actually a CEU provider. An additional resource for all of you is the Center for Coaching Solutions. This is an organization that provides coaches for you. This organization also will work with you on providing training for coaches. They'll work with you on setting up and managing your coaching program. So, excellent resource for you. All of the coaches have been trained and certified, so that's good news for you. In addition to that, lots of great information available to you online through the blog, in books, and in webinars. So the blog is located through our website on the Center for Coaching Certification, also accessible from Center for Coaching Solutions. And there's a new blog post, by the way, every Monday, Wednesday, Friday, so lots of great information there. We publish a book every year. The chapters are written by different coaches, and so you get a lot of really great perspectives. And I got to say, I got to brag on some of these chapters. There are some really smart people in there with some really great information. So check out the Coaching Perspective series. Another thing we do, of course, is what we're doing right now, this free 30-minute webinar. We do these each month. And then every other month we have a 60-minute webinar. Please do sign up for our newsletter. You'll hear about those and also see some questions answered in the newsletter. Now, I did mention I was going to do something for you. So first off, I want to make sure you know we are available for quick calls and emails. If you want to get some information, find out more resources, etc. We're available for outsourcing, whether you want consulting to start and run a training program, training for coaches in that program, or the actual coaching services. We do have all of that available on an outsourcing basis. Now, for you, individually, happy to give you a free consultation. If you want that individually for yourself and something you're working with in terms of coaching or being coached, great. If you want that to talk about something for your organization, hey, what are the opportunities, what are the possibilities? Now, another step for you, of course, is choosing which resources you're accessing and creating your plan for achieving the results. We are very interested in being helpful for you in that regard. Want you to know us as the resource for coaching results. Thank you for your time today. Delighted to have each and every one of you here. Thanks for the input and the questions. I'm guessing we've done a good job of answering all of those. If you feel like there's more information you want or a follow-on, please type it into that question panel. I do realize our 30 minutes is up. We've used our time. Thank you for being here. Let us know how we can be helpful to you. And yes, in response to your question, I will email you a link to a recording of today's webinar, so you will have that. And in that email, I'll let you know how you can reach me and set up that free 30 minutes. So thank you for that question. Excellent. And those of you that have to jump, yes, feel free. I appreciate it. Appreciate you being here. Those of you that are typing in your thanks, hey, thank you. Glad to have you here. Glad to hear it was helpful information for you. So excellent. Looking forward to being of service and hearing from you in the near future. So thank you, everyone.